Chapter 3. For Every Action. Sam and Jasper arrived at Charing Cross Station and made their way through the crowds towards the Strand, dodging umbrellas, backpacks, and the odd toddler on a Gruffalo case. They crossed over to the Mall before climbing the steps towards the Duke of York column. The Royal Society, Sam read out when they stopped at a black palisade gate beside a large cream building. I thought you worked at the Patent Office. This is where the real work is done, came the evasive reply from his father, as he led Sam down some steps to an unremarkable door. It had no buzzer, wore no grandeur. It was just a plain, sturdy, panelled door. A tarnished silver plaque was set above a post flap on the wall next to it. Fabulous Atoms, it read. Sam pointed. You didn't... The sign. Oh, I couldn't resist. It's a free service to help people register a patent. Inventors are a lazy lot, especially when it comes to paperwork. Jasper slid his hand into the letterbox, and Sam heard the mechanical whir of a scanner. Buzz, click, the door opened, and in they went. Sam's shirt was stuck to his back, and the cool air was a relief. A spiral staircase led down to a lobby of highly polished white tiles. At the far end was a single door, and beside it sat a guard. He wore a crisp grey uniform and a very shiny pair of shoes. In his lap rested a dog-eared copy of Perpetual Motion, Getting the Ball Rolling. He had a calm, pleasant face, small bushy moustache, and equally bushy brows. Setting down his book, the man rose to greet them. "Good afternoon, Mr. Vincent. Right on time, I see. And this must be Samuel." The guard smiled, extending his hand. "I'm Harold." Turning, he tapped a nondescript panel on the wall beside his chair, which became a holographic screen. "Where to?" Level 16, please, Harold. Just need to collect a few things for Monday. The audit is nearly upon us." "Oh, I bet Flick is in a right old state. 16, you say?" Harold rotated a three-dimensional schematic. The image expanded until Sam could make out floor plans. Stepping aside, the guard allowed Jasper to enter a code. Sam jumped when the metal door lit up and slid open. "Mind you don't wander off down there. We're still looking for the last person that did." Harold winked when the door slid closed, the whiskers of his moustache twitching. "Well, this is a fine mess you've gotten us into," Remus spat. "Me?" Eindhoven blustered, snatching a glance around the corner. "It certainly wasn't my idea to break into the Royal Society archives and steal some sodding scroll for a woman who fluttered her eyelashes at me, let alone one who works for Harbinger." "You seem to have conveniently forgotten the money." "That's because there are no shops in the graveyard, you moron." Remus fumed. Further debate was interrupted when a searing blast slammed them into the wall and sent the pair crashing to the floor. Coughing, Remus scrambled up, pulling his stunned compatriot with him. "How the hell did Bade know we were down here?" "You know how," Eindhoven choked. "Still, we're not dead yet." Remus touched a wet patch spreading across his side. "Easy for you to say." Eindhoven swore. "Come on, this way." The lobby lift door slid open again as soon as it had closed, and Sam expected to see Harold fussing with the button. Instead, they stood before a gloomy chamber, filled with row upon row of shelves. How? Jasper stepped past his dithering son and triggered the light sensors. "Speed lifts." "How far down or up did we go?" "We're about 200 meters below the Society lobby." "What?" Sam hurried to keep up. "We travelled 200 meters in a second. That's impossible." Jasper favoured his son with an expansive grin. Boring office indeed. Down here, he spread his arms. Impossible is one word that's seldom used. Now, where is theoretical genetics? I swear it moves every time. I give up. Flick! He turned and shouted. There was a minute's silence, and then Sam heard a faint humming before a bright object shot over his shoulder. Yes, Mr. Van Sant? A female voice asked. Ah, there you are, Flick. I'm looking for the electrochemical sap patent. You've gone past it as usual. Sam stared, open-mouthed. Hovering before them, about the size of a football, was a robot, smooth and shiny, with a band of neon blue light around its middle. The air beneath the robot shimmered. Jasper noticed his son's jaw dragging on the floor. Sorry, Sam. This is Flick, our cybernetic curator. But what is it? It? The blue bled to red, and the floating custodian rounded on him. It had 2 cameras for eyes and a speaker grill mouth. I am a highly intelligent, self-aware cybernetic organism, one who has catalogued every document on all 272 levels of the London office, right down to the Mew soap napkin which Gustav Felvervin scribbled the recipe for self-levitating hydrogel. A telescopic arm unfolded and poked Sam in the forehead. It indeed. Flick whizzed away, muttering. Mew. Sam rubbed his forehead and looked at his father. Jasper laughed. Viking beer. Quite an acquired taste. And no is the answer to your next question. He pointed after the robot. Farnsworth's Learning and Interactive Cybernetic Curator. Flick for short. Felicity Farnsworth was the curator here for over 60 years, and on the day of her retirement, presented us with her replacement. Apparently, the old genius passed her time studying the patents in advanced robotics and synthetic neurological cybertronics. Flick was the result, and her design formed the basis for all our cybernetic assistants. I think Felicity programmed more than a little of her own personality into Flick, though, for she gets a little touchy at this time of year. How come? It's the audit soon, and Felicity used to take it very personally if our index scored below 98% in catalogue accuracy. Now, we must get a move on, if you're going to make this movie. Remus slid to the floor. It's no use. The wound was fatal. The wet patch was no longer a patch, and he was losing feelings in his arms and legs. That man's not human. We've scoured every floor of this place. There's no scroll and nowhere to hide. Come on! Eindhoven tugged at him, but Remus was spent. Get out of here. His friend's eyes were rolling. Take the speed lift and head for the lobby. You can use Harold's computer to find your bloody scroll. Here. He handed Eindhoven one of Miss Keller's devices. Putrid cow. This was all her fault. You'll need it. Now, go. Sam wandered past tall, densely packed shelves, crammed with every manner of manuscript, and labelled by neat and patient hands, until they found the robot near the top shelf. Her pincer was moving from spine to spine. Digesting root beetles, dynamite tubers, elastic vines, electrochemical sap. Here we are. Brilliant. Thanks, Flick. Back to the speed lift if you don't mind. Sam's got a big afternoon planned. Her neon nimbus had changed to a sulky green by the time they'd reached the lift. Thanks again, Flick, Jasper said. See you Monday. The robot banked and disappeared, the rows of chamber lights pinging off behind her. Again, no sooner had the door closed than it slid open, and they were back in the white-tiled lobby, though it was not at all how they had left it. The charred pages of Perpetual Motion were scattered to all corners. The blackened smoking cover lay beside an empty chair. The air reeked. Sam stared at an ugly smear on the pristine floor, a clotted, crimson streak that stretched across the room. At its end lay a crumpled body, limbs bent at unnatural angles. Placing a hand across his son's chest, Jasper peered out of the lift, then hurried over to the wall and pressed the panic button. The lights bled to red, and an alarm began to wail. He turned to Sam. "Stay! There!" then ran over to the fallen man. The lift door slid closed, and Sam was left in the dim, pulsing steel box. He blinked. Took a moment to realize he was alone. No buttons, no apparent way out. A wave of claustrophobia gripped him, and Sam banged on the door. "Help!" he shouted, kicking and beating on it. "Dad! Dad! Get me out of here!" The door opened. His relief, however, was short-lived. He was back on level 16. Here, too, red floor lights beat in time with the alarm. Sam peered into the gloom. He could make out shapes, but they did not look like shelves. Sam shuffled forward, arms and fingers searching. Flick? Nothing. His foot struck something hard, and he stopped, cursing. Bending to rub his toes, he fished out his phone for a light. The something hard was a large metal foot, joined to an ankle, then a knee, a giant metal robot out of a 1950s movie, all right angles, welded joints and exposed bolts. Serrated rubber pincers capable of crushing him whole hung at its side. The head was a kite-shaped block of iron, and the quatrefoil eyes glowed demonically. A noise caused Sam to turn just in time to avoid a beam of light that burst past him and sliced into the steel Centurion. He stumbled away from the robot amidst a shower of sparks as another flash followed the first. Then he tripped, dropping his phone. Heart pounding, Sam swore and scrambled away. There was a humming, followed by a rush of wind, and he was flung across the room, landing hard and rolling before being lifted and slammed onto the ground once more. The force drove the wind from him, and bright spots skittered across Sam's vision. Gasping, clawing at the musty air, he lay with his cheek pressed against the rough floor, ears ringing. He heard a click, the flicking of a switch, and suddenly the air around Sam turned warm and sticky, like glue. He struggled, but whatever had him held fast. The muffled sounds of footsteps drew nearer. "Busy down here, considering it's the weekend and such splendid weather too," a man's voice remarked. It was deep and heavily accented. "I certainly didn't expect the archives to be so busy, being such a well-kept secret. Do you know how hard level 273 was to find? Yet here you are." The voice paused, then sighed with genuine regret. Raising his hand, he pointed a cigar-shaped device at the boy, its tip glowing. "Still, dead men and all that. Goodbye." From the shadows sped a blur of metal and angry red light. Flick rammed into the stranger at speed, and the vicious air around Sam evaporated. "Not allowed! Never allowed in here!" she shrieked. "Who are you? Show me your face!" The stranger regained his balance and rolled away. Coming to his feet, the man struck out at Flick with a retractable staff. It glanced off her side. He then narrowly avoided her next charge and staggered against Sam. The two became entangled. Something came away in Sam's hand, but the man didn't notice, his attention firmly on his airborne assailant. Seconds before Flick reached him, the man clapped his hand over a panel on his chest. The device made a whirring sound and pulsed between his fingers. He turned on his heel as the device emitted a bright flash. "No!" Flick screamed. "That too is forbidden! Forbidden!" But the man was no longer there. The speed lift opened and 3 behemoths bustled into the room, flashlights in their hand. Sam slumped, his every bone and muscle on fire. In his hand, however, he held a strange prize, a long tube wound in cloth. One end was peeled back, and he could make out the faded wooden spindles of a scroll. "You have it!" Flick swooped down, steam venting from a crack on her side. One of her camera eyes had been smashed and was leaking green fluid. Farnsworth's design had not anticipated volatile aerial incursions. "Well done, boy. Well done indeed." She took the item in her pincers and, spluttering inky smoke, disappeared into the maze of dusty relics. "You all right, son?" One of the men knelt in front of Sam. He wore a long black and purple coat, with a steel vambrace around each wrist. Both hands were gloved, but his palms glowed and crackled with energy. I think so." Despite the ringing in his ears, Sam was unable to take his eye from the man's hands. "You better come with us. Mr. D'Angelo will want to see you. Your father's already in his office." He laughed when Sam winced as he tried to stand up. "Cheer up. It's not every day you face a rogue paladin and survive. Bade caught up with his mate a few floors up, and that chap, let me tell you, wasn't so lucky." Sam had no idea what or who he was talking about. The man clapped him on the back with the force that rattled Sam's teeth before they headed towards the lift, flashlights scouring the room. Eindhoven flinched, expecting the crazed robot to crash into his back, but the device on his chest had transported him to safety. Clever. He appeared to be in an office near the top of a tall building, a neat, minimalist room with a solitary mahogany desk. The only remarkable decor was 2 rows of tribal masks on the walls beside the double doors. Some were small and round, beautifully carved and high-polished. Others were elongated and rough, scarred creations with hollow eyes and snarling lips. The front of the office was glass, and the view was spectacular. To the west, the sun was sinking into a cherry sea, casting the mask collection in a menacing crimson hue. Far below, the busy streets of a city were already blinking neon. To the east, an imposing flat-top mountain dominated the horizon, draped in a cloth of marshmallow cloud. "Welcome to Africa, Mr. Eindhoven." The doors opened, admitting a slim woman carrying a briefcase. "No, Mr. Palatine?" The final image of his childhood friend, slumped against the wall, would haunt Eindhoven forever, but regret would serve no purpose right now. "Miss Keller?" he nodded. She had changed since they parted company in London, her casual tourist garb replaced with a tailor suit and painfully high heels. Making her way behind the desk, she took a seat, motioning him to do the same. "I trust everything went according to plan?" Miss Keller opened the case, turning the gaping square towards him. It was empty. Hungry. Eindhoven crossed his ankles and looked out of the window. It's quite a revelation, being on the other side of the fence. He reached inside his jacket and placed the first of the devices she had given them on the table. It looked like a water pistol, made of smoky plastic with a cone-shaped barrel. The mangler made short work of poor Harold. And this, I forget its name, the hotspot, was it? He placed a cigar-shaped device beside the gun. Was not without its uses. But the Turner, he tapped at his chest. Now this came in handy. He paused. One can't help but wonder what is worth so much effort. Miss Keller's lips formed a firm line. We've a great many assets at our disposal. Harbinger is unparalleled in technological innovation, and now, thanks to you, we have an even greater insight into the mods of your cadres. So, in return, we've allowed you to sample a few of our toys. Amazing what you can achieve without petty rules and meaningless constraints, wouldn't you agree? She could not help but dig at the dogma of his former employer as her fingertips found a button beneath her desk. Now, the scroll? Too late to turn back now. Eindhoven had enjoyed little glory or reward in recent years, and Harbinger's offer was welcome. The ex-paladin reached for the scroll at his side, and was hit by a wave of cold panic when he found an empty pocket. He checked the other, but it too was bare. Eindhoven swore. Why, that little... Miss Keller watched the colour drain from the man's face. Fighting the disappointment that his failure brought, she chose instead to cherish the faint silver lining. Her fingertip traced the hidden button once more, and then she pressed it, ever so slowly. Eindhoven looked down in surprise when the turner on his chest sprang to life. "Wait!" But it was too late. A needle shot from the back of the housing, administering an agent into his bloodstream. "Are you familiar with the tale of King Ferdinand of Naples, Mr. Eindhoven?" Miss Keller picked at a stray piece of cotton. Unsurprisingly, the paralyzed man did not reply. "I'll take that as a no. Ferdinand, or Ferrante, ruled Naples in the late 15th century. He was an exceptional and ruthless politician, infamously so, for he dealt with his enemies in the most gruesome manner. Once he had helped them shrug loose their mortal coil, he had them embalmed, dressed and put on display in his own macabre museum. The only visitors he allowed there were those he suspected of disloyalty, to show them the fate that awaited all who crossed him. It proved a most successful object lesson for improving devotion." She paused. "Morbid as it is," her voice dropped, "I was fascinated by the tale. So much so that I shamelessly plagiarized the idea. You've been injected with a neat little concoction the ladies in the lab refer to as LS2, or the living statue serum. Its chemistry is fascinating, but I won't bore you with the details. Essentially, it puts your body into a state of suspended animation. With one evil little twist, you can still see, still hear, and still remain quite conscious. You're a living statue, one that will have a place of honour in my own museum, which, I'm not too proud to say, has yet to be graced by a paladin." Miss Keller smiled, spreading her hands. "So, welcome. You're going to make a fine addition, and quite the talking point for my next tour." She snapped the empty case shut. "Harbinger does not accept, condone, nor reward failure, Mr. Eindhoven, and I must now find another way to acquire that which you have so spectacularly failed to deliver." Miss Keller took the case and left the room, flicking off the light as she closed the door, the rhythmic click-clack of her heels growing fainter and fainter. Eindhoven struggled. From the wall, hollow eyes and gaping mouths mocked him. He watched as the sun dipped and set, perhaps for the last time. So much for that sunrise. His mind shied away from the fate that now awaited him, sentenced to an endless nightmare in some twisted mannequin freak show, to be leered and laughed at by this evil woman. Remus had been right. Too late for regret. Inky blue-black sullied the blushing sky, a great hand plucking the first stars from hiding. High above the bustling bay, far from the continual beep-beep of the taxis and lively music booming from the bars, the traitorous Turner flashed and came to life once more. When the moon rose on silver rails, the office was empty.